We often say we understand the value of time. When someone reminds us that time is precious, we nod in agreement. It sounds like wisdom we all accept. Yet, if we truly understood it, would we still spend hours scrolling through our phones, delaying important decisions, or promising ourselves that tomorrow will be the day we finally begin? Most of us live as if time is something we can always recover later. But here is a truth that many people quietly avoid. Time is the only treasure in life that, once gone, can never be earned back. You can lose money and work hard to earn it again. You can lose a job and eventually find another. Even broken relationships sometimes have a chance to heal. But a single moment of time, once it passes, disappears forever. No wealth, no power, and no success can buy it back. And the most painful part is that people rarely realize the value of time while they still have it. They only begin to understand when years have already slipped quietly through their hands. Today's story begins in a quiet town where life moved at a slow and simple pace. In that town lived a father and his son. The father was known as a hardworking and responsible man. Every morning before the sun fully rose, he would wake up, prepare for the day, and open his small shop in the market. His life was not luxurious, but it was honest and steady. Through years of discipline and effort, he had built a simple life that he was proud of. His son, however, was very different. While the father believed that every day was an opportunity to build something meaningful, the boy treated time as if it were endless. He woke up late, often long after the morning had begun. Instead of helping with work or learning useful skills, he preferred to wander through the streets with friends, sitting near tea stalls, laughing and passing the hours without purpose. Whenever someone mentioned work or responsibility, the boy would simply shrug and say the same words again and again. There is still plenty of time. To him, the future always felt far away, and tomorrow always seemed like the right day to begin. The boy's life followed the same careless rhythm day after day. While the town slowly woke up with the first light of morning, he remained asleep long after the sun had risen. His father had already opened the shop, neighbors had begun their work, and the market streets were already alive with movement. But the boy was still lying in bed, stretching lazily and telling himself there was no hurry. When he finally stepped outside, it was rarely with any real purpose. Instead of helping his father or learning a useful skill, he wandered through the narrow streets with his friends. They spent hours sitting near small tea stalls, talking about meaningless things, laughing loudly, and watching other people work. Farmers passed by carrying tools. Shopkeepers opened their doors and arranged their goods. Workers hurried through the dusty lanes to begin their day. The boy watched all of this as if he were only a visitor in life, not a participant in it. Whenever someone asked him why he did not start doing something meaningful, he would simply smile and shrug. In his mind, the future was always distant. There was always another day to begin, another chance to try, another tomorrow waiting patiently for him. He believed life would always give him more time. What he did not realize was that while he waited for the perfect moment to begin, the most valuable hours of his life were quietly slipping away, one ordinary day at a time. At first, the father tried to guide his son with patience. In the evenings, after returning from his small shop, he would sit with the boy and gently offer advice. He spoke about responsibility, about the importance of learning a skill, and about how every day was an opportunity to build a better future. But the boy only listened with half interest. His mind was somewhere else, drifting toward the carefree hours he planned to spend with his friends the next day. As time passed, the father's advice became firmer. He began to warn his son that life would not always be this easy. He reminded him that youth does not last forever, and that the habits formed today would shape the life he would live tomorrow. Yet even these warnings seemed to pass through the boy like wind through an open window. Eventually, the father stopped speaking about it altogether, not because he no longer cared, but because he understood something that many parents learn only through painful experience. Words alone rarely change a person. Advice may enter the ears, but wisdom enters the heart only when the heart is ready to receive it. So instead of repeating the same lectures again and again, The father chose to remain silent and wait for the right moment to teach his son a lesson he would never forget. One quiet evening, as the golden light of the setting sun slowly filled the small house, the father stood silently in the corner of the room. For a long moment he seemed deep in thought, as if searching for the right way to reach his son's heart. Finally, he walked toward an old wooden cupboard that had stood there for many years. Inside it were a few simple belongings, carefully kept from the past. From the cupboard, the father gently took out a small object wrapped in a soft cloth. When he unfolded the cloth, an old watch appeared in his hands. The watch was simple and worn by time, but it still worked perfectly. Its hands moved steadily and quietly, marking each passing second with calm precision. The next morning, the father called his son. The boy came slowly, still sleepy, and rubbing his eyes. Without saying much, the father placed the old watch into the boy's hand. "Take this watch to the market," he said calmly. "Go to different shops and ask people how much they would pay for it. Listen carefully to their answers, then come back and tell me what you learn." The boy looked confused. The request seemed strange, but it also seemed simple enough. He slipped the watch into his pocket and began walking toward the busy market, unaware that this small task would soon teach him a lesson that would change the way he understood time and life forever. The boy walked down the dusty road that led to the town's busy market. As he approached, the familiar sounds of the marketplace filled the air. Vendors called out loudly to attract customers. Shopkeepers arranged their goods carefully at the entrances of their small stores. People moved through the narrow streets carrying baskets, tools, and bundles of fresh produce. Life in the market was full of movement and noise. Curious but relaxed, the boy took the watch out of his pocket and stepped toward the first shop he saw. It was a cloth merchant who was folding colorful fabrics on a wooden table. The boy placed the watch in front of him and asked politely, "How much would you pay for this watch?" The merchant examined it for a moment, turning it over in his hands before speaking. "It's old," he said thoughtfully, "but it still works. I would give you 500 rupees, not more." The boy nodded and continued walking deeper into the market. At the next stall, a grocery seller studied the watch more carefully. He adjusted his glasses, looked closely at its face, and said, "Maybe 800 rupees. It looks decent enough." Further down the road, a man selling steel utensils barely glanced at the watch before giving his opinion. 1,000 rupees, he said casually. "Take it or leave it." By the afternoon, the boy had asked several people, and every answer was different. Some offered less, some offered more, and others simply shrugged without interest. When the boy returned home later that day, he repeated everything he had heard, yet he did not understand why his father had asked him to do such a strange thing in the first place. The next morning, the father called his son again. The boy walked into the room, still curious about the strange task from the day before. Without saying much, the father handed him the same old watch once more. "This time," the father said calmly, "go back to the market and ask people something different. Do not ask them the price of the watch. Ask them the price of the time inside it." The boy stared at his father in confusion. "The price of the time?" he repeated. "What does that even mean?" The father simply smiled and replied, "Go and ask, then come back and tell me what you learn." Although the question made little sense to him, the boy obeyed. Soon he was walking once again through the crowded market streets. The sounds and sights were the same as yesterday, but this time his task felt far stranger. At the first shop, he approached the cloth merchant and asked, "Can you tell me the price of the time inside this watch?" The merchant burst out laughing. "The price of time?" he said. "What kind of foolish question is that?" Embarrassed but determined, the boy continued to the next stall. A woman selling vegetables waved him away impatiently. "Go home, boy," she said. "Stop wasting people's time with silly questions." At another shop, a man shook his head with irritation. "You cannot put a price on time," he said firmly. "Now leave me alone." With every step, the boy felt more uncomfortable. The laughter of strangers echoed in his ears. His face grew warm with embarrassment, and for the first time in many months he began to feel a quiet sense of shame. He had asked a simple question, yet no one seemed able to answer it. Some people laughed, others became annoyed. A few simply ignored him. Confused and discouraged, the boy slowly walked through the market, wondering why his father had sent him on such a strange and humiliating journey. Just as the boy was about to give up and return home, something caught his attention. At the far corner of the market stood a small and quiet shop that he had never really noticed before. Unlike the other busy stalls, this shop seemed calm and almost hidden from the noise around it. Curious, the boy stepped closer. Inside the tiny shop, the walls were filled with clocks of every shape and size. Some were large and wooden, others small and delicate. The steady ticking of dozens of clocks filled the room with a soft and constant rhythm. Behind a small wooden counter sat an old man with silver hair and gentle eyes. He was carefully repairing a broken watch, his hands steady and patient. The boy hesitated for a moment, then gathered his courage and asked his question one last time. "Sir," he said politely, "can you tell me the price of the time inside this watch?" The old man stopped his work and slowly lifted his eyes. Instead of laughing like the others, he studied the boy's face thoughtfully, as if he understood something deeper behind the question. "The watch itself can have a price," the old man finally said. "One person may offer 500, another may offer 1,000, but the time inside it, that has no price." The boy listened quietly. "You can buy a watch," the old man continued gently, "but you cannot buy the time it measures. If a man loses money, he may earn it again. If a farmer loses his crops, he can plant new seeds. But if a single hour of life passes, no wealth in the world can bring it back." The room fell silent except for the steady ticking of the clocks. And for the first time, the boy began to understand the true meaning of the question his father had asked. The boy left the small shop in silence, the old watch still resting in his hand. As he walked through the busy market, the noise around him seemed distant, as if something inside his mind had shifted. The old man's words echoed again and again in his thoughts. For the first time, he began to see his days differently. He remembered all the mornings he had wasted sleeping late, all the hours he had spent wandering through the streets with no purpose, and all the times he had told himself that tomorrow would be the day he finally started changing. When he returned home, he told his father everything the old watchmaker had said. The father listened quietly and simply placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. No long lecture was needed. From that day forward, the boy slowly began to change. He woke earlier in the morning, helped his father with small tasks, and started using his time with greater care. The change was not sudden, but day by day, his life began to move in a new direction. This simple story carries a powerful truth. Every person on earth receives the same 24 hours each day. No one is given more, and no one is given less. The difference between a meaningful life and a wasted one is simply how those hours are used. Many people keep telling themselves they will start tomorrow, but tomorrow has a quiet way of turning into years. So do not wait for the perfect moment. Begin today, even if the step is small. Ask yourself one honest question. What is one thing you have been postponing that you will finally start today? Your future begins with the way you use this very hour.